Hold on, Greg. We've got breaking news in the NFL. Mike Vrabel was just fired by the Tennessee Titans.
Wow.
This is Adam Schefter just moments ago. He says, Titans fired head coach Mike Vrabel per sources. Vrabel led Tennessee to 4 consecutive winning seasons after arriving in 2018. The Titans have experienced back-to-back frustrating seasons, finishing multiple games under 500 both times. So, Tennessee just fired Mike Vrabel. There is a new prospective head coach on the market that is not going to cost you a draft pick, Greg Bedard.
That is fascinating. And if I am the Krafts, this would accelerate my timeline. One of the things that I was going to bring up was, what if the Krafts are sort of biding their time to figure out what happens with Mike Vrabel?
All right, so I think Greg got the gum out of his mouth. I think we both cleared our throats. I think we're ready to go. It is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast, Dick Cattles episode brought to you by FanDuel, exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Before we get into the Palace intrigue, the drama, the storylines, let's start quickly. We're not going to talk about the game because nobody cares about that game. But I did want to ask you, Greg, your thoughts on the end on Sunday. The Belichick walking off the field, the Belichick press conference, just everything that you saw play out once the game was over.
By the way, I haven't watched the offensive film yet, but I started watching the defensive film, and I was just like, this is pointless. Should I even watch this? Because it wasn't so much the game and the performance. It's just like when it comes to it, like in my evaluation and season-long evaluation, should this game count as much as the others from a weather perspective? I mean, like if somebody does really well in this game or really bad, like it could skew sort of their grade. And that's what I do after the season. You know, I grade the team, I grade the players, projecting into next year. Should they keep them? Should they not keep them? I decided to watch it, but man, I got to say it was a rough watch. But just in general, the scene on Monday, the possibility that it could be Belichick's last game as Patriots coach, my comment basically is it sucked. I mean, it sucked all the way around. Like it just, I know some people will say it was fitting for Belichick the way that it ended, and he's got the mask on and weather game and sort of like karma or any of that stuff. Like I just didn't think that was right. I didn't think any of it from the snowstorm made it a ridiculous game. The crowd, there wasn't much of a crowd there. Like if it was a decent weather day, I think the place would have been packed. And with like 5 minutes left or whatever, when Breece Hall, scored that touchdown to basically end the game, I think there would have been some Belichick chants and thank you, Bill, something like that. And, instead there was none of that. There were like, I don't know, by the end of the game, it looked like one of the Eastern Mass Super Bowls in Gillette Stadium. And, he's got his mask on. He goes out there. He just walks down the steps. No, salute to the crowd. I know we talked about, what we had in mind for the finale. I got to tell you the truth. I mean, thinking about it over the last couple of weeks, like, it would have been nice. Ideally, it would have been nice that if the Krafts are indeed moving on from Bill, and we'll get into that in a second. If they were indeed moving on from Bill, it would have been nice if the two sides came together and maybe sort of leaked it out together that, this is going to be Bill's last game. And then we would have had an outpouring of support. Maybe the players carry Bill, they beat the Jets instead of what happened on Sunday. Maybe some of the players carry Bill off the field. Like, I know I'm a big softie. Especially, I'm a big romantic when it comes to Bill Belichick. I know, guilty as charged. But I just, I wanted something different. What happened on Sunday? It just sucked. Like there was no joy in Mudville. It was a sad, pathetic ending, and it really doesn't sit well with me that could be the last time that we see Bill Belichick coaching the Patriots, and those are going to be lasting images. I mean, I know we have the Super Bowls and we have other things, and we got the Apple Dynasty thing coming out that, the trailer just dropped for it. But, say Bill goes on to coach someplace else. It's going to be sort of like Brady. Like, in time, we'll remember all the good things. But for now, with Brady, you sort of remember how it ended here, him winning in a Bucs uniform, and it sort of gives you indigestion. I assume that's the way it is for Patriots fan. And I think if this is the way it ended for Bill, this is what you're going to remember for a long time until we get after they're done going into the Hall of Fame. Maybe that's when you start to remember all the good times, but it just stunk. Sunday was just not, it was not a good time for anybody.
No, there was certainly no Rudy moment for Belichick or anything dramatic like that. And you've got to imagine, like, if you're looking at this, you're Robert Kraft. When you were drawing this up in your mind, when you were visualizing it, everybody knows what the plan is, I think, by now. Like, hey, 2024, you get through that year, Belichick breaks Shula's record. It's a perfect transition to Mayo. This thing could not have exploded in the face of Kraft any more than it did. And I could just imagine him sitting there as the Jets are doing snow angels at the end of Belichick's last game as the Patriots head coach and just thinking, what the hell? This is not what I had in mind. All right, let's look forward, though, because this is what everybody's talking about. There's so many things that are going to happen here over the next couple of months. I mean, between the coaching decision, free agency, the draft. But we start with the meetings, Greg. They continue to go on. What do you know about how this is being put together and how long these meetings might go?
Well, I'll just, readily admit, a lot of this is a blind spot for me. I think it's a blind spot for a lot of people because it's really a party of three and nobody really knows. Talking to people in the building.
Hold on, Greg. We've got breaking news in the NFL. Mike Vrabel was just fired by the Tennessee Titans.
Wow.
This is Adam Schefter just moments ago. He says, Titans fired head coach Mike Vrabel per sources. Vrabel led Tennessee to 4 consecutive winning seasons after arriving in 2018. The Titans have experienced back-to-back frustrating seasons, finishing multiple games under 500 both times. So Tennessee just fired Mike Vrabel. There is a new prospective head coach on the market that is not going to cost you a draft pick, Greg Bedard.
That is fascinating. And if I am the Crafts, this would accelerate my timeline. One of the things that I was going to bring up was, what if the Crafts are sort of biding their time to figure out what happens with Mike Vrabel? And I know there were reports in Tennessee yesterday that Vrabel was basically going to go into ownership and demand at least somebody to be put in charge of football operations, because Mike really just wants to coach. And like we talked about, the shotgun marriage with Rand Carthon was not going to work. It was not. When did I bring this up? Like 6 weeks ago. And of course, I got pillared in Nashville saying that I was racist and other things. But, this is very real. And, if they are moving on from Belichick, if I'm the Crafts, I don't know how Mike Vrabel is not the number one possibility for me. And I know I hear from people on Twitter, like, he's the same as Belichick. Look at his record the past 2 years. Look at his record over the last 4 years. Look at the personnel on that team. Look at the quarterback. I mean, he didn't have, all you have to say, when it comes to Vrabel, he didn't have personnel control. Bill did. How can you compare Vrabel to Belichick? And here's what I would say about people who are worried about him as a defensive head coach. First of all, I think he is the new version of Belichick. And as far as a game coach, if you like Bill, the game coach, I think Vrabel's even better right now on top of his game. But as far as offense, and I agree, and I'm one of these people that has been adamant about this over the years. If you get a defensive coach, you're inheriting problems with their offensive coordinator having success and leaving, and now you have to start over again. That's part of what happened with Vrabel in Tennessee. He had Matt LaFleur his first year, went to Green Bay. Then he had Arthur Smith, he went to Atlanta. Now Arthur Smith is open. But if you bring Mike Vrabel in here, and there are 3 candidates for offensive coordinator who probably aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Bill O'Brien, who Vrabel worked under in Houston, Arthur Smith, who's now free after Atlanta, and Josh McDaniels.
Yep.
And so, I would say you at least have 5 years with one of those guys, if not all of those guys, if you're Mike Vrabel, who knows all of these guys. So to me, I think Vrabel is going to be a hot commodity. If I'm the Patriots, now he's not one of these guys who's under contract who they can't talk to until January 22nd. You could talk to Mike Vrabel right now. Now you can't hire him until January 22nd when you can begin to hold the 2 mandatory minority interviews mandated by the Rooney Rule. But you can get your ducks in a line, and I'll be interested to see if this increases the timeline a little bit for the Crafts.
Diana Rossini with the latest, and I should say that Rossini swing and a miss on this one.
Yep.
Let's give Greg Bedard a lot of credit here. And this is not to blow smoke up his skirt, but it is to give him some credit. The man did write a month and a half ago that Vrabel was unhappy, that this was a possibility of Vrabel getting out of Tennessee, not necessarily getting fired, but getting out of Tennessee. I mentioned it on the pod on that day that Rossini was pushing this idea that, no, the Titans are happy. The Titans are happy with Vrabel. Well, Rossini, shifting gears here a little bit. She posts on X/Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it. The Tennessee Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel. Just 6 weeks ago, owner Amy Adams Strunk had plans for Vrabel to be part of the organization. We now know where Rossini got her news from. For years to come, believing they had a top NFL coach. Recently, ownership changed its mind. So you thought you had a top NFL head coach 6 weeks ago. All of a sudden, I don't know what happened in the final month and a half that would wipe away everything that Vrabel had done. Okay. Jordan Schultz tweets out, Vrabel to the Patriots watch is on. Greg, I'm going to throw this out there right now because this is something I mentioned on my podcast and Nick Cattle's show today. And look, I think it's very unlikely that a trade would happen. However, we know how these things work. I found it very telling and fascinating that on the same day we had the most declarative statement, and this was from Rossini, so take it for what it's worth, because now I think we do look at it and say, okay, she's been right on a lot of things, but she got this one, she might have been wrong on this one. But saying, hey, look, the Falcons interested in Belichick. If Belichick's no longer with New England, they're interested in Belichick. On the same day, I think like less than an hour later, Jordan Schultz comes out. Mike Vrabel's interested in the Patriots. You and I know this without getting into detail. Let's just do this rapid fire quickly. Is it true or not true, Greg, that a lot of these things that come out from insiders like you, from beat writers, this stuff has been talked about for probably days, if not weeks, before it happens, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Bill Belichick's advisor, and I give Jay Stu a lot of credit on this one. Bill Belichick's advisor, no longer really agent, but advisor is Neil Cornrich, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Mike Vrabel's agent for a long, long time, Neil Cornrich, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's put the pieces together here, folks. Belichick and Kraft are having these meetings about his future. Story comes out, hey, look, Atlanta is very interested in Bill Belichick, and they just happened to fire their head coach, who, by the way, was the offensive coordinator for Mike Vrabel before he left Tennessee to go to Atlanta. And then we have Vrabel. Oh, he's interested in New England. I don't know if you have it. You obviously have some ties with Vrabel because you were ahead on this. I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable spot. But am I crazy to think that Neil Cornrich is out there playing some games and trying to align these stars to get his guy Mike Vrabel where he wants to go, and possibly the guy he advises, Bill Belichick, in a spot that would be good for Bill B?
I think you're spot on. I would not move you off that.
I said this on the podcast today. I don't know if it's going to be a trade, but people are talking about the idea of leverage, Greg. And some are saying that, and by the way, Ian Rappaport is jumping into this saying, fair to say, keep an eye on New England and what's next for Bill Belichick regarding Vrabel. Here's a scenario for you. And this is why I don't buy that Kraft has zero leverage. And I'm not telling you that Bill's going to get traded or he's going to get fired. He's going to just talking leverage here. What if Robert Kraft, who has a relationship, pretty good relationship with Arthur Blank for several reasons, going back to 2002, is it possible Neil Cornrich, middleman, Kraft knows that Arthur Blank, his buddy, wants Bill? Couldn't Kraft go to Bill and say, hey, look, I don't mind having you as head coach in 2024, but I'm not going to give you a long-term extension. And you open the door on Monday saying that you're willing to collaborate on personnel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire somebody from the outside. And guess what? They're going to directly report to me. And if there's any question about personnel, I'm going to have the final say. And you're going to be a lame duck head coach with your personnel power getting stripped slowly from you at the age of 72. Or Bill, or Arthur wants you down in Atlanta. And Arthur's willing to pay you 4 years, $25 million a pop to run the entire organization like you've done here. But the only way that you're going to be able to go to Atlanta is if you say yes to this and I can work out a deal with Arthur Blank. I don't think that's a crazy scenario. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's a crazy scenario.
Right. I don't think it's crazy. I think it's unlikely. I think, we're looking at a situation here, and I think Bill, set the tone in his press conference, well, quote unquote press conference on Monday, which was just a joke, by the way, virtual season-ending press conference for 13 minutes with no follow-ups. I don't know if that's been done in the history of the NFL. Most of those things are in person. They're at least a half an hour. If not, I've been in some that have been 45 minutes to an hour. It's sort of like, hey, all right, it's over before the offseason. Like, this is what you get. And instead, we got that the other day. Which, again, if you're the Krafts and you want your team back, that wouldn't have moved them off that. So anyways, but him coming out and stating without even being prompted about, I'm under contract, Bill was setting the terms both for the Krafts and for other teams. And I've been in this place for a while. The people that I talked to last week, I wrote a column for Sunday Morning about sort of, what the situation was between Belichick and the Krafts and how he might approach things. This is either a firing or he's here. It's like I don't see a scenario where he's traded, but, I'm not going to rule it out.
All right. Let me ask you this. You kind of mentioned this quickly about the offensive coordinator. Obviously, this news of Mike Vrabel getting fired in Tennessee swings what we're going to talk about here with the breaking news, and this is the stuff that I love. But let me ask you this. Vrabel found is strong. Vrabel brings in LaFleur, works out, LaFleur is gone. Then he brings in Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith does a good enough job to get a hire down in Atlanta. So it's rather obvious to me that Vrabel does a pretty good job of, it's either him or his agent or whoever, identifying offensive minds. If he wants to keep this thing in the Patriots world, let's say, because I know that, you've talked about Josh McDaniels an awful lot here. Would Josh McDaniels rather stay here in New England and run the entire offense, hypothetically, for Mike Vrabel, or would he stay loyal with Bill Belichick and go with Belichick if Belichick goes somewhere else?
That is a great question, Nick. I think if I'm Josh, I would be conflicted. I think he'd need to hear the selling points on both teams. I mean, there's certainly pluses and minuses on each side. If he has designs on being a head coach again, and I know a lot of people listening to this are scoffing at it, and you'd be like, he was a disaster twice, he's not going to have – okay, fine. Whatever you think. But he's still a young man, and he could have a third act, depending on how you view the second act. I think there's a lot of people around the league who think that Mark Davis is just completely dysfunctional, and that will come out and it'll make Josh look a little bit better. But anyways, be that as it may. As far as if he has designs on being a head coach again, I think his best chance, it might be his only chance, would be, for example, to go with Bill Belichick to Atlanta. He gets to run the offensive side. He gets to pick the quarterback, whoever they get in the draft, whatever they do. It's his baby. And I also brought up this example with, say, Bill goes to the Chargers. So let's use that as a better example. Bill goes to the Chargers. Josh has the chance to coach Justin Herbert. Let's say Bill does a great job with an older roster, already a quarterback in place. They win a Super Bowl. Justin Herbert is a perennial MVP under Josh McDaniels. Bill Belichick decides it's time to hang it up in however many years, 3 to 5 years. If you're the Spanos family and you have a quarterback who's on top of his game, probably loves his offensive coordinator, what he's done, he's gone to another level. Who's your next head coach if Bill retires? It'd be pretty strong odds that it would be Josh McDaniels. I mean, it just would. I mean, but I'm not saying that's ironclad. They could bring in somebody else who just leaves offense to Josh and they make it worth his while, that sort of thing. But if you're Josh McDaniels, you want to have a head coaching opportunity again, going with Bill Belichick and being in place to succeed him at some point in time might be your best shot. Staying here under, say, a Mike Vrabel. Vrabel could be here for multiple years. Are you really, is McDaniels really going to get another chance coming sort of the same scenario as he did coming from New England to the Broncos, to the Raiders? I would say the chances are a lot less. So I think that would be at play for Josh McDaniels.
All right. Who do you trust more? And if this puts you in an uncomfortable situation, you don't have to answer, because I know that you have a relationship with both of these guys. And I'm not saying that, the relationship slants your coverage. You just have a relationship with both Bill O'Brien and Josh McDaniels. You're Mike Vrabel. Let's say Mike Vrabel is the next head coach of the Patriots. Hypothetical. We're having some fun here. Mike Vrabel, new head coach of the Patriots. Who do you trust more with a top 3 quarterback? McDaniels or O'Brien?
So, like you said, I have relationships with both of these guys. I think the world of both of them, both as coaches and human beings. So, this is tough for me, but, just judging it and putting aside, if I'm Mike Vrabel, any personal relationships I might have, again, remember, Bill O'Brien brought Mike Vrabel to the NFL. I think he had been at Ohio State or no, whatever. He worked under Bill O'Brien in Houston.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the dynamic is there. Would he feel indebted to Bill? But, tossing all of that outside, and I do think I would be fine with either of these guys, especially when you look at what Bill O'Brien did with Deshaun Watson, basically adapting the Patriots offense to Deshaun Watson to play the best ball that he's ever played in his career. So Bill O'Brien certainly has a strong case, but at the end of the day, it's very close for me. But I would go with Josh McDaniels. I think he just has a better track record. Look what he did with Mac Jones most recently when the offense was, almost borderline top 10, scored a lot of points. Just look at the Patriots offense in 2021 with a rookie quarterback and a bunch of new free agents. I would say he rebuilt that thing pretty good on the fly. So I would lean ever so slightly to Josh McDaniels, but I love Bill O'Brien as well.
Would you trust, if you're Robert Kraft, would you trust Mike Vrabel in the position to turn this thing around offensively? Do you trust him with the young quarterback, with having to overhaul that offensive side of the roster? If Vrabel is at the top of the list, and look, my opinion, I think Mike Vrabel's your next head coach of the Patriots if Belichick's gone. Strictly opinion. I think this has been in the works for weeks. That's my personal opinion.
It certainly looks that way.
So, and by the way, Amy Strunk statement on Vrabel: as the NFL continues to innovate and evolve, I believe the teams best positioned for sustained success will be those who empower an aligned and collaborative team across all football functions, i.e. Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon don't get along too well. Rand wasn't Vrabel's guy. Vrabel wasn't Rand's guy. I believe Greg Bedard told you that 6 or 7 weeks ago. Back to the question, though.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Would you entrust, because, we're going to talk about the offense here for a long time, the next few months. Would you trust a defensive guy to do it right?
I definitely would need to hear his plan for offense. That would be one of the first questions I asked. Look, we ran into this with Bill. You run in with this around the league with defensive head coaches now. They lose their offensive coordinator. Look at what happened to Mac Jones most recently. Look what happened to Mac Jones when he lost his offensive coordinator and he went through 3 play callers in 3 years. Look at where he is. He's broken. And that's going to happen to just about any quarterback outside of the occasional unicorn. Look at what has happened to Josh Allen in Buffalo after Brian Daboll got the Giants head coach. I mean, he's been good. Is he as good as he was at that time? No, I don't think so. Not even close. So I would need to hear a plan from Mike on that. I understand the concerns about a defensive head coach. I have that. I just think that Mike Vrabel is so good in so many different ways that I'd be willing to overlook that. But I need to hear a plan. And I think the 3 people that I laid out, McDaniels, O'Brien, and Arthur Smith, those are guys, if you put in charge of the offense, I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. All 3 of them have experience as a head coach and can sort of, help you in that, almost be assistant head coaches, ideally, because McDaniels and O'Brien are good friends. If you could get McDaniels and O'Brien to coexist as sort of co-offensive coordinators, to me, that's a home run, at least for a while. But I think with those 3 candidates, I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. So I would be okay with it.
Is Vrabel enough change for you? Because I know fans will say, what the hell, here we go again. Before we get that answer, we do have to do some business. Quickly, Greg, if you can tell the fine people listening, watching this podcast about our friends at FanDuel.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use. I use it all the time. Love it. There are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. The best ways to find popular parlays. I love those parlays. That's the way to go. And more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Is Vrabel enough change? Because people will push back and go, here we go again, staying in the family. You go from Belichick defensive mind to Vrabel defensive mind, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Because here's the reason. Number one, Mike Vrabel, I don't think, is going to ask for Belichickian level total control, autonomy, evil empire type stuff. Like, Vrabel is going to be like, I want to coach. I want to be the CEO. I'm going to have a good defensive coordinator. Our defense is always good. I'll have a lot of input on that side of the ball. I have an offensive coordinator. He gets offense. What he wants. Bring in whoever you want as GM. I get to sign off. I want to make sure I work with this person. But I certainly have Ryan Cowden I think that's his name, or Cowdren in Tennessee, as I know somebody that Vrabel thinks very highly of. He comes in. He runs personnel. He can report to you if he wants. I'm open to whatever. So, yeah, that is, you get new voice, new vision as far as personnel. You get new voice, new vision, new staffing across the board, especially on offense. Hell yeah, that's enough change for me. That is change. That is positive. I think it would be a home run. Now, again, let me reiterate something that I wrote a couple weeks ago. Vrabel head coach, Gerard Mayo, DC, maybe even / assistant head coach, Josh McDaniels offense, Billy O'Brien, whatever, to me is in, plus whoever they pick as personnel. And who knows? Vrabel might have there might be some hot shot who's who has a close relationship with, and they come in as personnel, to me, that is a way forward and progressive for the New England Patriots.
How tough of a decision, if it is a tough decision, is this for Kraft if he's looking at Mayo versus Belichick versus Vrabel?
Now, it depends on where he is with Belichick. And, so Vrabel changes things, I think, a little bit. I do think going in, talking to people around all sides of this, going in, and I wrote this for Sunday Morning over at BSJ, I think Kraft is still very conflicted. I think that I put it at about 33% chance that Belichick was going to remain in power. I don't think Bill really wants to go anywhere with what he's paid, his power, Nantucket. He's been here. It's a comfortable life. He's older. I don't like change. I'm 20 years younger than him. What 71-year-old wants to move and learn all sorts of new things? So I think that Belichick is going to make some sort of offer that includes McDaniels, personnel, stuff like that. All right, fine. You want this? Here's what I propose. I don't think it changes a whole lot of things, but to me, Mayo is not a consideration. I mean, if it comes down to Vrabel's number one for me, then Belichick, and then Mayo. I just don't think Mayo's ready. I would love to see him leave and come back at some point in time, like a Vrabel is doing right now. Who knows? Maybe Vrabel flames out in 5 years. But to me, if the goal should be, because talking to people, they think that Robert Kraft is conflicted because he knows he has to win next year. Like if Bill goes someplace else and does like a Brady, like they're really good. If the Patriots can't be in rebuild mode at 4-13, while Tom's won a Super Bowl first year after leaving, Bill's in the playoffs first year after leaving, Kraft's going to look horrible. And I think that's part of that has been the calculation for Kraft, and that he's willing to hear Belichick out. But to me, with Vrabel on the market, not having to give anything up for him, to me, that is the clear number one choice if I'm the Krafts.
Before I go with my thought here, because I have an overriding thought on this, Diana Rossini says the Titans believed trading Vrabel was too complicated and would take too long per sources. Again, I think we can safely say those sources are ownership / front office. They wanted to move on quickly. I was told Vrabel never asked ownership for a trade or asked out of Tennessee. Well, you don't have to ask directly if you make it obvious that you're unhappy. That's what I would say. There's a way to passive aggressively get your ass out of town. All right, let's get back to Vrabel here. Here's what I would say, Greg. I feel strongly about this. Mike Vrabel now being a free agent makes it 1,000 times easier for Robert Kraft to move on from Bill Belichick. Number one, you've got the ties in New England. Number two, Mike Vrabel is going to get paid by Tennessee. Number three, you look at having to replace Belichick. I would want the guy who's been proven that he can win football games and run a program instead of hiring a Ben Johnson who's been great in Detroit, but you have no idea. Promoting Mayo, who's been great in his role here, but you have no idea. This gives Robert Kraft, I think, a parachute to jump out the plane and feel much better about jumping out of that plane.
So say that again. Sorry, I'm just caught up in some news again.
Oh, some news again. What do we got?
Well, no, it's just I'm looking at fallout from the Vrabel stuff. So sorry.
Oh, okay. You're doing work. You're on your phone. There's stuff going on here. All right. So my point is Vrabel now being out there makes it 1,000 times easier for Kraft to make a move because he's got the ties in New England. He is a proven head coach that has won at a high level up until the last year or two when that roster aged out and the quarterback situation was complete crap. And number three, he's going to get paid by Tennessee. And I don't think Vrabel is going to walk in and say, hey, give me $20 million, Robert. So just the relationship, Greg. A, would you agree with that? And B, if you could give people a better idea as to how relationships truly matter when it comes to this kind of stuff that we're witnessing play out.
Yeah, well, I'll answer the last thing first. I mean, look, I think it's huge, especially when the Patriots. The reason I think Gerard Mayo was such a candidate for the Patriots was because the Krafts are not going to turn over the franchise to somebody that they don't know. Now, they might have done that with Pete Carroll, and that didn't go well. Belichick, they had a previous relationship. They knew. Vrabel basically fits basically everything that Belichick was when they traded for Belichick, in terms of he had been here as a player, he had experience as a defensive coordinator and as a head coach. And I think the Krafts are not going to turn over the family business to an outsider, somebody that they don't really know, and just hope. They're not going to turn themselves into the Dolphins or the Jets. That's just not how they do things. And I think they look at the Steelers and that family and their ownership, about how they've had 3 head coaches. You know, this would be the Krafts' third, and hopefully Mike Vrabel is here for another 20, 30 years or something like that. I think that would appeal to them. But I agree with you that Vrabel, not having to trade for Vrabel, certainly makes it more palatable to me if I'm the Krafts, even though I didn't have any qualms. I have no qualms about trading a pick, like say next year's first round pick, or a second and third. I have no issues. And talking to more people around the league, especially failed GMs, I've heard Dimitrov say this. I've heard Randy Mueller, who I covered with the Dolphins. I've heard him say this. Both of them said, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have traded for a head coach, just because that ends up undoing you. And so I think that this would appeal to the Krafts. Now that they don't have to give up anything for Vrabel, they can deal with not giving up anything or not getting anything in return for Belichick. If Belichick, you fired him and then you had to trade for Vrabel, maybe that would have looked worse. But now that's completely freed up. So Bill can leave on his own. Vrabel can come in on his own. And to me, I think that would be a home run in the eyes of the Krafts.
How much time we got left? I'm asking you live here because I know you got Felger and Maz, right?
Probably about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, we're going to squeeze as much as we can in here. All right.
Okay.
Power play. I know you just said, Vrabel can kind of pitch, or this could be a whole new beginning and he can have his guy come. Any concerns if Kraft is willing to pull the trigger on Belichick and move on to Vrabel? Any concerns about Vrabel pulling a power play here and being difficult when it comes to putting together the front office? Or you think Vrabel will be like, here's my list of guys, I'm cool with any of them?
Yeah, the latter. I think Vrabel really just, wants to coach and game plan and coach, on Sundays. And everywhere he's been very amenable. Now, I'm sure we're going to hear things about how he's abrasive and things like that. But I just saw Derrick Henry just had like some ridiculous quote about him. I heard Taylor Lewan, now of podcast fame, he talked on Kay Adams about, how good Mike Vrabel is and how he should be the most sought after coach. I just think that I think that Vrabel would be, the way to go for the Patriots. And I think he'd be open to anything. I think this is, to me, the Krafts want their franchise back. It's basically Bill Belichick, and they wanted more openness. And is Bill really going to do that? That's the whole discussion with the Krafts. Okay, Bill's agreeing to a GM and changes, but is he really going to do it? Probably not at the end of the day.
Right.
But Mike Vrabel coming in would be agreeable to everything, and would actually give press conferences and things like that. Like, to me, I just think that it would be the best of all worlds for the Krafts.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't want to speak for the fans because, fan the way you want to fan.
Yeah.
But I just feel like this would be more palatable for a lot of Patriots fans than a lot of the other options we've been talking about. To look at Vrabel, they know him. again, you can look at track record and say, this guy has been Bill Barnwell's, posting. He thinks Vrabel's one of the top 6 coaches in the league.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to come up with any negative regarding Mike Vrabel. And I talked about it on my podcast, The Nick Cattle Show. Check us out. Going back several weeks ago, the idea of Vrabel. I think it's very difficult to throw negatives or shade at Vrabel in a possible hiring. The pros far outweigh the cons, I think, with Mike Vrabel. Did Robert Kraft play this perfect? I'm not telling you he intentionally did it, but
right,
it could be just pure happenstance. Because the meetings continue to drag and this stuff continues to take a while, Tennessee just said, well, we didn't want to take it too long. We just wanted to, cut the cord. Did Kraft kind of... Again, I don't want to say it was intentional, but if it was intentional, geez, was this a stroke of brilliance that he waited out Tennessee knowing that they would pull the trigger before he pulled the trigger on Belichick?
To the point that I'm just going to float this out there, and I have no knowledge of it, but, and maybe they just want to move on. But I do think that there's a chance, okay? Like say you're Amy Adams Strunk and Mike Vrabel went to, this is similar to when Jack Easterby came back for the ring ceremony with Nick Caserio and there were tampering charges. So Vrabel comes here for the Hall of Fame. He says all these nice things, including we at the podium, about how we need to play better in the second half. He's in the box talking to Kraft the whole time. All of a sudden, and let's just say there were a lot of discussions behind the scenes from Vrabel's perspective about what was going on in Tennessee, or at least I've heard, some rumblings about that. I don't know exactly what was said, but you put all that together, and now Vrabel, quote unquote, sort of forces his way out of Tennessee. Could you see? I could see tampering charges leveled against the Patriots, similar to the Patriots put tampering charges, then later withdrew them against the Texans about Nick Caserio. But I do think that I think this is ideal. That maybe the Crafts were looking at this, and especially the season that they're having when Vrabel was here. I don't know what the record was at the time, but that they could see this going in this direction and sort of just said something like, hey. If you're looking for, just keep it in mind down the road. Okay? Wink, nod.
We'll get you out with this one because you got to go. Obviously, the entire planned conversation changed, and I love it because this is what we're here for. Bill Belichick, is he gone, Greg? And if he's gone, when do you think it happens?
I don't think it's 100%. Maybe with the Vrabel news, my percentage goes from 33 to 18%. I do think there are discussions. I would think, and it's definitely not going to be done today now with the Vrabel news. That would look bad.
Yeah.
I would say Thursday or Friday. I think Bill is moving on. I do think Atlanta is the best place for him. It dawned on me when I was on Felger and Maz last week. People don't understand. That place is out in the middle of nowhere, Flowery Branch. It's a great compound. They even have at behind the practice field for the players and the coaches, during training camp. It's awesome. Bill will love it. I think at the end of all this, Bill is gone sometime at the end of this week. Bill will be the Falcons head coach next season, and Mike Vrabel will be the Patriots head coach next season.
Man, oh man, is this offseason going to be fun. It is going to be bananas. Couple things. Check us out over at BSJ, $50 for the year. Bedard and Giardi, you know what the deal is there. Also, this episode brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Have fun, Greg, in your next stop. We'll catch up with all of you later this week. It's the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattle.